Imagine standing in front of two shelves. One has 6 choices, the other has 24. Which one makes you happier? Most people would say the second shelf. More options mean more freedom, right? But what if having more choices doesn't make life easier? What if it makes decision harder, satisfaction lower, and regret stronger? In a world where we are told that unlimited choices is the ultimate form of freedom, researchers have uncovered something surprising. Sometimes, having too many options can leave us completely stuck. This is the hidden psychological trap known as the paradox of choice. And it affects almost every decision we make, from what we eat for dinner to what careers we pursue, the clothes we buy, and even our financial future. There is an old philosophical thought experiment that perfectly captures this problem. Picture a hungry, thirsty donkey standing exactly between a pile of food and a bucket of water. Both are equally close, both are equally valuable. The donkey wants both, but there is a problem. It can't find a rational reason to choose one before the other, so it hesitates and hesitates and hesitates. The story ends dramatically. The donkey remains frozen between two equally attractive options and never acts at all. The tale is known as Buridan's donkey. And while no real donkey behaves this way, the story highlights something deeply human. We often assume that decision-making is simple. Compare the options, pick the best one, move on. But reality isn't always that neat. When choices multiply, our brains can become overwhelmed. Instead of helping us move forward, more options can sometimes trap us in endless analysis. For most of human history, choices were limited. You ate what was available. You wore that local craftsman produced. You worked in occupations that existed within your community. Today, the situation is completely different. Walk into a supermarket and you'll find dozens of versions of the same product. Open a streaming service and you'll face thousands of movies. Shop online and you'll scroll through endless pages of alternatives. Modern society celebrates this abundance. More choices are usually presented as a sign of progress, and in many ways they are. People can express individually. Different tastes can be accommodated. Consumers can find products that better match their preferences, but abundance has a hidden cost. Every additional option demands attention. Every alternative requires evaluation, and every decision creates uncertainty about what we didn't choose. The result is a mental burden that previous generations rarely faced. One industry illustrates this transformation particularly well. Fashion. For decades, clothing brands typically released seasonal collections. Styles would remain available for months. Unsold items would eventually be discounted to make room for the next season's inventory. Then a new model emerged: fast fashion. Instead of few major collections each year, retailers began introducing new designs constantly. Fresh styles appeared every few weeks. Consumers suddenly had access to a continuous changing stream of products. The strategy was incredibly effective. New arrivals encouraged frequent store visits. Limited quantities created urgency. Shoppers felt pressure to buy before items disappeared. The system transformed the retail world, but it also dramatically increased the number of choices consumers faced. Instead of deciding between a handful of options, shoppers were now navigating an ever-changing ocean of possibilities. And that's where psychology enters the picture. Because more choices don't necessarily create more happiness. Sometimes they create confusion. One of the most famous studies on decision-making explored this idea in a surprisingly ordinary setting: a grocery store. Researchers set up tasting display for jam. Sometimes customers encountered a table featuring 6 varieties. Other times, they encountered a table featuring 24. The larger display attracted more attention. People were curious. They stopped, they looked, they sampled. At first glance, this seemed like a success. More options generated more interest. But when researchers examined actual purchases, they discovered something unexpected. Customers who saw the smaller selection were far more likely to buy. The larger display attracted attention. The smaller display generated action. Why? Because evaluating 24 possibilities is mentally demanding. People become uncertain, They compare endlessly. They worry about making the wrong choice, and often they leave without choosing anything at all. The abundance that was supposed to increase freedom actually reduced decision making. Psychologists have a term for this phenomenon: analysis paralysis. It's what happens when thinking becomes so extensive that actions stop completely. Most people have experienced it. You spend an hour reading restaurant reviews and end up ordering nothing. You compare dozens of phones and postpone buying any of them. You research career paths for months but never submit an application. The irony is that gathering more information often feels productive. It feels responsible, feels rational. But beyond a certain point, additional information stops helping. Instead, it creates friction. The brain becomes trapped in a loop of comparison, and the decision remains unfinished. This effect isn't limited to shopping. Researchers have observed similar patterns in much more significant areas of life. One example involves retirement plans. Intuitively, offering people more investments options should encourage participation. After all, greater flexibility means a better chance of finding something suitable. Yet, studies have repeatedly found that increasing the number of available choices can reduce enrollment. Faced with too many possibilities, many people delay deciding altogether. The decision feels complicated, the consequences feel important, so they postpone. Tomorrow becomes next week becomes next month, and eventually, no decision is made. The lesson is striking. Too much freedom can sometimes produce inaction rather than empowerment. Even when we finally make a choice, another psychological challenge emerges: regret. Imagine buying a new laptop. You compare specifications, read reviews, watch comparison videos, research alternatives. Eventually, you make your decision. You should feel relieved. The process is over, but instead, a new thought appears. What if another model was better? What if a different brand offered more value? What if a better deal appears next week? The more alternatives existed beforehand, the more opportunities there are to imagine better outcomes afterward. And that can reduce satisfaction. When choices are limited, it's easier to appreciate what we selected. When choices are endless, it's easier to focus on everything we left behind. Economists describe this thought, a concept known as opportunity cost. Every choice excludes other possibilities. Spend money on one thing and you lose the chance to spend it elsewhere. Invest time in one project and another project remains unfinished. Choose one path and countless alternatives disappear. In a world with relatively few options, opportunity costs are manageable. In a world overflowing with alternatives, they become impossible to ignore. Every decision carries the shadow of all the roads not taken, and modern technology makes those alternatives highly visible. Social media constantly exposes us to different lifestyles. Online stores display endless competing products. Streaming platforms remind us of thousands of unwatched shows. The result is a persistent feeling that something better might exist just beyond our current choice. For perfectionists, this problem becomes even more severe, because perfection requires identifying the absolute best option. And in a world of near infinite choices, that search never truly ends. There's always another article to read, another review to compare, another possibility to consider. The pursuit of the perfection decision can become a barrier to any decision at all. Ironically, people who seek the best outcomes sometimes achieve the least progress, not because they are incapable, but because they become trapped in endless optimization, waiting for certainty, waiting for perfection, waiting for ideal moment. Meanwhile, life moves forward. Another curious aspect of human psychology is our tendency to spend disproportionate amounts of time on minor decisions. Think about how long people debate insignificant details. What color should the logo be? Which font looks best? Which restaurant should we choose? Meanwhile, much larger questions receive less attention. The imbalance appears in organizations, businesses, and everyday life. Small decisions feel manageable, big decisions feel intimidating. So we often devote excessive energy to trivial matters while avoiding more meaningful ones. Combined with choice overload, this tendency can create an exhausting cycle of overthinking. So what's the solution? The answer isn't eliminating choices entirely. Choice is valuable. Freedom matters. Personal preferences matter. The goal isn't fewer options at all costs. The goal is balance. Enough choice to find what suits you, Not so much choice that we become overwhelmed. Sometimes a good decision made today is better than a perfect decision delayed indefinitely. Sometimes selecting one acceptable option is better than endlessly searching for the ideal one. And sometimes the greatest form of freedom isn't having unlimited possibilities, it's having the ability to choose and move forward. The modern world offers more options than any generation in human history has ever experienced. More careers, more products, more entertainment, more information, more possibilities. At first glance, that sounds like a dream, but the human brain wasn't designed to evaluate endless alternatives, and that's the paradox. The very thing we associate with freedom can sometimes become a source of stress, hesitation and regret. So the next time you find yourself frozen between dozens of choices, unable to decide what to buy, watch, study, or do, ask yourself a simple question. Are you searching for the best option? Or are you trapped by the existence of too many options? Because sometimes, the hardest part of making a decision isn't choosing between good and bad, it's choosing between too many good possibilities.